Hello, everyone, and welcome to This Week in Hospitality Marketing live show number 417. Happy August 2023. I'm your host, Lauren Gray. Thank you so much for joining us live on either watching our channel, our TV station channel on Roku TV, Google TV, Amazon TV, Apple TV, Samsung TV. The list goes on, including our app, iOS and Android, the Hospitality Channel app. We are always on the free side when it comes to the live show. There is paid content through that, just like a Netflix kind of thing for hospitality industry professionals. And we also are simulcasting, as always, on our Facebook, several pages on Facebook, actually, several of our collaborations and businesses and entities and and associations and so forth. We are broadcasting on lots of pages in Facebook. If you're finding us there, LinkedIn only one place. That is my LinkedIn profile. That's a restriction of LinkedIn. It can only do live broadcasting in one medium for them. We're on several channels on YouTube. We're also on Twitter, X, whatever we want to call that. Twitch for those that use their gaming consoles for their media. Did I miss one? I don't think I have. Our TV station is 209 countries. Our social media simulcast is in 39 countries. And you're with us live, hopefully catching us as we discuss today's topic. And I've been actually looking forward to this topic for a variety of reasons. I should call it the Epiphany Show because as we've been going on with our discussions of data, AI, data, metrics, analytics, GA4. I mean, we just passed the first month through. So I'm really going to be interested in seeing companies as they get up with their first month-over-month reporting for July. Now that it's not that they're comparing it to UA and whether or not they made all the preparatory plans that they should have made for their analytics and marketing. So today's topic, custom audiences and multi-channel marketing. Customizes isn't the new component of our discussion. The usage of AI and GA4 are the new components of our discussion today because both have had a profound impact. Yeah, use both. As to the development of custom audiences. First, observationally, from a GA4 perspective, it is fascinating to see the ever-evolving changes that Google is doing for its GA4 platform, its uses of BigQuery, how it assimilates data, how it collects data, how it modifies how you can access that data, how you can use it for purposes of and what is allowed or not allowed, what gets carried over from their 360 programs, which is the very robust and very expensive UA version prior to. And to be fair for all 360 users, and you know this already because you're dropping six figures to run the platform with Google, full data instead of sample data, you have until October to worry about the transition to pure GA4. So you're still getting your GA feed, not GA feed, excuse me, your UA feed, GA3, until October. So you're not in the transitional crisis that all the rest of us folks not paying several six-figure amounts to have for Universal Analytics transition to GA4 in July. But that being said about the observation of Google and how it changes things. Some things that used to be done seem to be moving over. Other things that we didn't see getting done are being put into place. And then there's just general confusion as to what to use the numbers for now that they are recorded differently. And we've had some very good discussions on the live show about how that data is being aggregated, collected, your choices between user or session or data field, what's similar to what used to be done, but it's not the same. All the ways that you can begin to aggregate that data into dashboards using Google's Looker Studio, which is a free platform to do that on. And then, of course, using BigQuery, as we've always mentioned, for your GA4 as a backup to go beyond the general holding of your data for 14 months, being able to retain more data so you have a longer length year over year or transitional periods history to look back on. That all being said, GA4, huge impact on custom audience development. The other is AI. Now, it's been my bane of saying so many times on the live show, especially over the past few months, as it has flourished into the dialogue of our culture since November of last year when people became aware of ChatGPT and OpenAI, and now all of the other things that are going on with AI and all the variations of usages of AI. I've always tried to temper my expectations of what that translates to. The general open use of AI is we've had our concerns of authenticity, accuracy, truth, and so forth, because it will solve your question or answer your question regardless whether it has to make up the data. Um, and we're also noticing a trend that as things get used with inaccurate data, then AI seems to get dumber, for lack of a better way of defining it. It gets more childlike in its responses. So we are in different transitional thresholds, but AI as a usage tool to streamline processes goes back to a harken time when we had another big buzzword, and that was big data. Years ago, it seemed like as much as we're talking about AI from a stage, we were talking about big data from a stage. Big data, what's it going to mean for the world? Big data, what's going to mean for our industry? Big data, what does it mean for your hotel? And everybody that was trying to get attention to themselves pontificated on their opinions, observations, prognostications, and whatever have you. And some of it may have been close to the mark. Those that did get close to the mark probably are beating their chest, being a prophet. Very few people can say that because a lot of it didn't go the way it was supposed to go, never went to the way it was intended to go, and certainly wasn't considered as to what AI can now do with big data. That was not a part of a lot of people's discussion. And I will say and defer to one of my dear friends, Tim Peter, that people always overestimate the window of time, the transitions of things in the short term, and underestimate the long term changes that go on with that. And so when you add the AI functionality of being able to now sift, organize, correlate, search, discover from big data, structured and unstructured for those that know the difference, and the new types of data that GA4 are able to provide, you now are in a really interesting world of custom audience development generation. Now, for custom audiences, for those that may not be familiar with the term in its pure sense, custom audiences is the requesting of platforms like Google, like Meta, formerly known as Facebook. For all of the social platforms, we'll refer to them as Meta, like Bing, which, by the way, has had an interesting surgence in usage and value proposition because of its integration of open AI's ChatGPT formatting in its search engine. It's actually getting some footholds and growing in its usage and its conversion rate. At least we're seeing that in real numbers. So going back to the custom audience thing, providing data to these platforms, Google, Meta, Bing, as examples, you're asking the platforms, they're offering really, to say, give us what data you have, and we'll see what we know about them from the information you have. Now, in exchange for privacy concerns, we'll anonymize the data to not refer to the individuals that you're providing the data for. So we're not trying to target a date person of one. We'll anonymize that and create a context of being able to use filters associated with the data that you have from the information we have about them. So if I give a 1,000 email addresses and names to Google to make a custom audience, if it validates that the emails do match what they have for those people's names, then they say, this is how many people we recognized out of this list, and is it sufficient size, usually 1,000 is the breakpoint, to say you have a custom audience, which will learn and grow from it. Meaning as you use it, it gets more knowledgeable of how it represents what it knows about those people. It will continually refine that data about the people that you submitted. That's the good part. Now, that has been the same with Facebook, where custom audiences, that was one of the things we have pontificated about doing as a marketing strategy for many, many times. Rather than just open broadcasting and hopeful targeting of your audience messaging, take what you have of your audience knowledge, CRM data, offer it to the platforms, which they anonymize for safety reasons. But you're now able to go over and create filters against that custom audience that you can target more effectively. Maybe that's geography. Of the list of people I gave you as emails of previous guests, I want to only send this message to people that were within 150 miles of me. That is taking a custom audience and then defining a filter for it. There's a very large amount, all the filtering about the things that the platforms know about these people becomes defined, and it's usable. So you can make better specific targeting. The real value of custom audiences, and we've talked about this again at times before, is that it is a catalyst for creating what's called lookalike audiences. Audiences that are created from the similarities of the audience that you've provided. So if I, in the same example I just gave, took 1,000 people from the guests, from my information of my guests, and submitted their emails and what the information that the platform, Facebook or Google, was asking for, I get a custom audience. Then I can ask that platform, once they've decided or identified who they know in those audiences, from those people, based on all the comparative things, and at one point it was known to be a little around 56,000 points of data when it comes to Facebook, I want other people that match that within a 80, 90, 95% similarity. Obviously, the higher the similarity, the smaller the number of creation for the lookalike audience. So the larger the custom audience, the greater the capability of creating a much larger lookalike audience. And you had segmentations of which country you're looking for that lookalike audience to be from, and all of the filters that are associated with them. So taking my example, if I took 1,000 previous guests, made a custom audience, and then asked the platform, say in this example, Facebook, to make a lookalike audience, it would take everything it knew about those 1,000 people that were my guests, and I say I want 95% accuracy. I want as much similarity as I can to these people for all the information you know about them. And it will find, and I want them from the United States, it would find hundreds of thousands, millions potentially, of very asimilar, 95% above, similarity to the audience that I provided, which were my previous guests, which, to translate the value of that, these people that match that as a lookalike audience have all of the similarities that are aware of from this platform to being just like my guests that stayed with me and enjoyed my product, which means they have a good propensity to be interested in my product should I make them my product and put in front of them by marketing. So that lookalike audience gave me a much better targeted definition to pursue of people that were very similar, lookalike, to the audience of my guests. That's the real value of lookalike audiences. And this is the way things have been for a while now, several years. This has been good marketing strategies of, answering the question of, 50% of my marketing is successful. I just don't know what 50% is, which 50% it is. This helps answer that question by saying, well, let's look at people that already look like the people that have bought your product, and let's start there. Higher opportunity for conversion, better return on investment, ROI for the big people that concern themselves, greater for that, and the ability to cultivate larger audiences from that. Because as they begin to engage and positively engage with you, it reaffirms the audiences that you've created. Now, in the world of custom audiences, this is sourcing from the side of what you know of who you want to market to. Demographically, geographically, behaviorally, these are aspects of what you have as a custom audience. Previous guests, family status, geographic distance from you, time of year that they stay with you. These are all selectable and very simplistic compared to all the things you can do, means of identifying a custom audience targeting. Well, there is another way. And with GA4, we've had the door open for us now to flip from who we're trying to identify we target to. We've done some great shows and gotten great feedback from a lot of you about the development of customer profiling or personas, depending upon the targeting audience you're going for. Customer profiling is when you're going for group business because you're talking collectively about representation of an entity, where personas, you're talking about the individual and the individual's entity as to what they're interested in and how they react to certain types of content. That's the difference. And for those that may remember that show, which was back on 300 and I like to say 54 was the show. I'll get that in the show notes, actually. I'll find the show that we talked about the difference between personas and customer profiles. We actually did a couple of shows on to clarify the variations. Anyways, that's a sourcing, as we said, of who do we want to have the message in front of. And it's not so much a guessing game, but yeah, it's a guessing game. You're trying to define what you are familiar with, and you have to generalize in those definitions as well as much as you can target very granular things about education levels, geographies, ownerships of types of brands and vehicles and so forth. It's crazy the things you can pick. You're still making the deciding difference as to whether they're included or excluded from the audience you're creating. So it's a lot of interpretation, guessing. The side that GA4 now gives us the ability to create custom audiences with is based more, I would say more, it's based on the actions you're wanting to identify them as being valuable for. And let me explain that. So take what we just said about how we've traditionally created custom audiences with personas, customer profiles, and so forth. Put that over here. Now over here, let's talk about creating an audience from what we can track based on what we want to identify from their action. Case in point, I want an audience of people that came to my website, went to my booking engine, but didn't book. I want to create an audience. You said, well, wait, what? How do we know that? Well, now we do know. Well, there's ways in Universal we used to be able to do that. Now it's known as just a selection of data that we want. And as we talked about with GA4, you can retroactively, forensically go backwards in time. Anytime you come up with a question, you'll have all the data to create the new question with and go backwards to answer that question. When it comes to custom audiences start getting generated once you define what you're looking to create the audience from. So date of inception forward, and it's the same thing that used to be in the UA. Once you created targeting and events, that way forward for custom audience, same too with now. You define what you're wanting to create an audience from, and that point forward, it begins to accumulate the audience based on the criteria you had. So say, for instance, I want people that went to my booking engine via my website and did not book. And I want an audience built out of that. Well, that's great. Didn't know you could do that. Maybe you did. But you can generate this custom audience. Well, what would this audience be good for? It's a simple audience. It's a fundamental audience of custom audiences that you should be doing, plus other variations of this, actually. But it's a simple one to start with. What would you use it for? Well, think about this. In the past 30 days, these people went and looked at your booking engine. Now, in reality, as we all function as ourselves, and we know what from a revenue management standpoint and hotel operations standpoint, there could be rate resistance. I don't like the rate I'm seeing. I've got as far as the booking engine to find out that the rate isn't what I want for the inventory type that I want. Well, okay. Then the other is maybe they didn't find the room type that they wanted. You don't have any kings. I really want a king. You don't have a king on the dates I want to go. I'm not going to go. It might be inventory availability. It just there's no rooms available during the times that they're looking for. There's lots of reasons why they went and didn't. Maybe they're just price checking. Maybe they wanted to see what was being offered on the promotion that you had fed, because there's other customizers you can create from tons of things. You begin to see this is tugging of a thread of a sweater when it comes to all the things you can do. So now this custom audience can be used in your ad campaigns. You can take this audience that gets developed at some stage from starting to create the audience to a point where there's enough of an interaction of an audience that Google says this audience is now usable. Again, about 1,000. And you put it into your Google ad campaigns and say, okay, I'm going to take this custom audience. And what I want to do with this custom audience of people that have gone to my booking engine but didn't book is I want to send them a special type of ad, a different ad than the branding ads that I'm doing or the promotional offers that I'm doing. I know that they're interested in me. They have found me. They have looked at me on my website and they've gone to my booking engine, yet they didn't convert. So I have them there, almost at ZMOT, zero moment of transaction. We're almost there. How can I get them over the hill? What's missing? You may interpret that as a solicitation for an incentive. Hey, book now and save this much. It might be a enhancement of maybe because of things that you know are happening that they were looking for, maybe an enhancement of information and or things that you can provide as ancillary values that make it worth the while for them to pull the trigger. Maybe it's engaging with them in a different way. We'll get to that in a little bit. But the idea is the custom audience can be used for this purpose. Now, let's expand this. This right now, up to this point, nothing we've talked about is earth-shatteringly different, other than maybe your lack of awareness that these things can happen, and or the fact that GA4 has an expanded capability of creating custom audiences from an event-driven side. Picture the idea that since all things are being tracked in GA4, you can create a variety of triggers of what you want as conditions to create a custom audience. I want all people that are in this geography using their mobile that went to this event page, and then went to my book engine but didn't book. I want to now create an audience so that I want to advertise those people with desktop only ads, because we know that there's a lot of traffic on mobile, but not necessarily as much conversion as desktop revenue. So you're looking at stuff, you're finding things, you're looking at ads, you're popping and moving, and you're looking at, well, before I drop a few $100s or perhaps thousands of dollars on my phone, which is not uncomfortable for some people, but maybe I want to take a little bit more time to look and research because they're at that stage, or confirm they're at that stage that this is a good choice. So they'll go to their desktop when they get back, and maybe they forgot about you. Maybe they found other things. And it's a good time to make sure you're in front of those people because you know they're almost there. They found you, they looked at you, everything was good, but they didn't necessarily purchase it because it was on mobile. Let's help them with the conversion by focusing on desktop and see if we can't get them over the hump that way. That's a way of looking at it. So you have that functionality. That is unfortunately where I see most agencies stop. They run paid campaigns. Maybe they make custom audiences for you and they use them in some capacity. It's not rare. Well, it is rare. It's not uncommon. It's not rare. Yes. Very few people that I see actually do these things. They don't use them as well as they could or use them at all, really. What I mean by using them could is the next conversation we're going to have. And that is multi-channel marketing. What do we mean by this? So it's a funnel, it's a workflow. And this is where I will use the analogy accuracy of a funnel is that you're literally keeping your engagement between the bumper rails, meaning if not this channel, then this. If not this message, then that. It's a progression of dialogue. We get inundated with repetitive, mundane, overbearing, high frequency, relentless retargeting. And it's usually, unfortunately, simplistically childish, and I think in the immature way, that they keep pounding the same message. It's the same ad, only formatted differently depending upon where you're seeing it next. So we have all had, and we've seen it in many ways with, not even on the news. You touch a website, and then everywhere you go, their ad is in front of you. And at first it was you might have been interested, maybe you're just curious, whatever the motivation of touching their website. Now you're getting angry because you can't get around all their ads no matter where you go. Their retargeting is insanely frequent and it doesn't go away anytime in the short window. It's like, now I'm just mad at you because I'm seeing your ad oversaturated. You're not telling me anything new. I'm not seeing a different ad. I'm not seeing a different offer. I'm seeing the same ad I wasn't reacting to the first time over and over and over and over. That is lazy marketing. That is uncreative. It is ineffective and it is annoying because if I didn't book or didn't click or didn't engage the second time after seeing it the first time, then it's not working. But agencies will go through and check a box saying we are chasing those people. They touch your site, we're getting in front of them. We're going to make sure that they know that we should be something they want to buy. That's unrealistic. It has a lot to do with, and this is good metrics, like we talked about last week. What dates were they interested in? What were they looking at? And how far away from when they looked at it is actually what they were looking for? Case in point, if I'm looking 100 days out from the date that I searched to dates that I'm interested in your hotel, which are trackable, by the way, we've had that conversation, then you have 100 days, maybe less, but not much, to convince me, to communicate with me, to market to me the reasons why I should keep you in consideration for what I'm interested in that got me to see you in the first place. If it's about this weekend or tomorrow, then I have a shorter window of opportunity of getting in front of you. That two comparisons is the definition of frequency requirement. How often should I put the ad in front of you? And it also is a huge indication as to pace of my presentation to you. If I have a short window, my pace should be picked up, meaning my frequency should be increased. If I have a longer window, my pace should be measured and my frequency tempered. That's only half the answer. The other half to the answer is the progression of the message. Actually, I should cut it in thirds. The second third is the progression of the message, in the sense that if a first ad and content didn't convince you, and the message didn't make you act differently than seeing it, then the second message should be a step next as to a different way of saying what you want to say, or a different topic related to the first topic that may be of value because the first one wasn't. So you have message level 1, message level 2, then there's message level 3. And depending again on the ability of the window of time between their interest and the time that they're wanting to make the interest decision, determines the pace and the frequency that this gets handled. First engagement content, second engagement content, third engagement content. That's the second third of the puzzle piece of how to use custom audiences multi-channel marketing. The third, and I wouldn't say final, but the third piece to that custom audience multi-channel marketing is the realization that it's just not Google Ads all the way. I changed the messages, but it's still just Google Ads. No, it's the fact that you have the ability to use your custom audiences to redefine what other channels might be more reasonable for them to engage with. Simple example, you sent an email out to somebody, they gave you their email to use, you send it to them, and they hit your email. Now, we've gone through this many times about email messaging and the creation of workflows for your emails. So you send an email out. Let's say it's mundanely simple. It's a newsletter one, which everybody seems to do. Too much in one place. I'm not a big fan of newsletters, just so you know, unless it's tailored newsletters, custom newsletters based upon the user, which have tools that you can use. We've shared them on the podcast before, that there are tools out there that will create custom newsletters down to the individual's interest. They're functional. They plug into your email CRM campaigns, and it's usable. And I still don't see a lot of people doing this. And yet it's the highest return value on it. But I digress on a tangent. So let's say, for instance, we sent this email out, and it's a newsletter. And you send it to 1,000 people. And you had a great opening rate, 50% opening rate, massive opening rate. People like your newsletter. 50% of the people opened it. Great. What do we do with that? Well, in the workflow that we just talked about with emails and so forth, you looked at what they clicked on, and it should have created separate audiences based on what they clicked on. If they clicked on the last minute deals versus the family offer versus the adventurism offer or the military discount or whatever it is, they get clustered then into sub audiences of people that, hey, they clicked on the military offer. Their interest is there. So now the next phase of content would be to send them something related specifically to military offers. And then, of course, you have other bleed off groups that can be created. They hit military offers and they hit family offers. Great. That's even more information. They have military interest and there's a family interest. We have more data that we can now next generation send to just them. We don't have to keep sending the same generalized email with 10 things to talk about or 10 offers. We can be a little bit more targeted in our next edition of content. And then from that, based on what they click, we can offer them something unique. Maybe it's an incentive. Maybe it's a discount to push the idea, depending upon, again, that window between when they're looking versus when they're staying, to know what we should offer by what point. We don't want to keep hammering rates and dates early on. We want to see if there's content that they want, helpful information they might need, means of communication with us they would want. And then eventually you get to the booking window of interest, like, hey, you should consider, here's our offer again, and here's what we're offering you because you've spent some time with us, so forth. That's a progression just for that. That's all well and good. But going back to the first newsletter you sent, half of them opened it, okay, and say all of them engaged for our example, but the other half didn't open it. What do you do with them? Do you just throw them away? Well, hey, we got a great opening rate, 50%. Woo-woo, us. What do you look at the first or the other half of the people that didn't open it? Usually, you hammer them with another email. Now, the simple way of doing that is you just simply change the subject line. Content stays the same and see if that sparks their interest. The subject line didn't cause them to open it. Maybe we change subject line. Let's get that out of the way. Okay, so you did that. Okay, the half that didn't open it, you go over and you send them the same email, different subject line, because they don't know it's the same email because they didn't open the first one. So to them, it's a new email. And say that out of the 500 that didn't open the first one, 250 people didn't open the second one. Okay. We now have another 250 people. Hey, we're good. 50% opening rate on the non-opening rate from the first one, which means we've successfully gotten in front of 3/4 of the people that we sent the email out to. This is awesome. We walk on water because it's astronomically almost unrealistic number. But that still leaves 25% of people, 250 people that didn't open the first one, didn't open the second one. Now, in the world of emails and email lists, you can try a third, maybe uniquely split up, change a different content as well. Maybe they saw a preview. Maybe they're not interested in your product because they're not interested in the fact that you are a product that they don't have a defined time to be interested in. They're getting the email because they signed up for it, but they have no travel plans that would include you. So there's no interest in needing it. Now, you run the risk of a couple of things. Creating a higher unsubscribe rate because people are like, you're annoying me now because this is the third email I'm getting from you and I didn't open your first two, so I'm not wanting to open a third. So you're now entering into dangerous territory in the world of CRM engagements by pushing the third too soon, or just to like, well, we're going to bleed this out until it's done. So usually the safer strategy is that these people get quieted down. I'm talking about only CRM engagement at this point. They turn into what's called a zombie list. They're on our list. They haven't unsubscribed from us, but they don't engage with us. Zombies. So they can sit and you can try them again later, maybe with something different. Maybe it's just a timing sequence. They're not interested in your product now. They have no interest in traveling to your market that you're representing. So bashing them with frequency is not going to be the solution for them. And the solution for them would ultimately be to unsubscribe. We've talked about solutions, and this goes back many years actually, about baiting that even with techniques on your emails of just saying, would you like us to talk to you? A huge value proposition. Anyways, tidbits of gold. So that's usually how a channel on itself operates. CRM, this is what CRM is doing. This is my department. I'm CRM, and I'm walking on water because 50% opening rate on the first one, high engagement, multiple new fractures of audiences, and a 50% opening on the second one. But, 25% zombies. We're just going to let them sit. We're going to try something else another time, see if that catches the bait. Okay, let's talk about the third component of what I'm talking about with custom audiences, and that is cross-channel marketing, okay, multi-channel marketing. What about taking those 250 people as an audience and offering it over to Facebook into a campaign that they would be exposed to? Facebook has a lower threshold of audience size requirement to be a custom audience, and they acknowledge, they see them, and they recognize, say all 250, you get a bat for 1,000. They recognize everybody you sent over because we're just going to keep the numbers simple. Now, since they didn't respond to emails, maybe social media channel is a channel that they would engage with your content. So first test is take the same content that was in your first email and put it into content form on your social as ads, advertise the post and get it in front of these people so it shows up in the newsfeed and see if they engage with that. So you're not irritating them and potentially losing them under unsubscribes by pushing the CRM envelope. What you've done is you've used multi-channel marketing. We've used the CRM channel to a level now where it might be better for us to use an alternate channel to see if we can get in front of them then. Well, you can see that you just don't have to pick one channel. You could pick another channel. You say, we're going to flip that over into Google Ads and see if we can identify these filters with custom audiences of maybe it's, a geographic. You find out that of the 250 people, half of them live in another country and your offer is within the next 2 or 3 weeks. It's not in the air window. So we wouldn't think that they're interested in what we have to say. There's no way for them to take advantage of it, even if they did want it. So you weren't in their travel plans. That's one of the answers of why they didn't engage with your CRM, as an example. This ability to segment these things out and define custom audiences so that you can use them particularly to discover. So taking that mindset, what we just went through with the CRM example and then shifting over to social for this is kind of like darts on a board. It seems to be directed, seems to have a strategy, but really you're just kind of hoping that what you do hits the mark. Better to identify who you're thinking about communicating with, to make sure before you start any process in any channel that the things that you're offering is based on the things that they're interested in. Custom audiences, lookalike audiences, audiences that have been defined to say, if I'm going to talk about a family offer as an example, why would I send it to a non-family guest? As a matter of fact, they might not ever want to travel to your property when it's a family type time, like summertime. You have a whole surge, and ask many hotels, especially when it comes to seasonality of summer versus not summer. There's a whole group of people that wait for school to get back into session so that they don't, when they travel, have to run into families taking over the common areas. They prefer not to. They don't have kids. And for the reasons that they travel for, they don't want to be around them when they do. So for that reason, you sending them a family offer is not targeting them. It's probably irritating them because they don't want to show up and be in a lobby with other kids or have kids. So before you even start the process, even in your first channel, identifying who you're wanting to talk to by the content that you're wanting to create for them makes a huge value to making sure that you're better in your conversions. Maybe instead of 50% of people opening your emails, and this goes back down to the fact that they hit promotions and so forth, because newsletters, let's face it, are a great seeding of what are people interested in, creating subsets of your audiences that they clicked on the military offer or they clicked on the family offer. These create the subsets. Take your family offer people and then bring them down that workflow path of engagement. What are they interested in? What dates are they interested in? What's your distance between their interest versus their time of decision? And determine your frequency and pace by then. Okay. We are familiar with terms like retargeting and so forth. And the example I gave you, which is the bad example of retargeting, which is incestuous, high frequency, unrelenting, similar ad in front of you all the time. Retargeting can be highly effective once your audience is defined. You're actually making first contact, second contact, third contact. Okay, creating the dialogue and engagement with them, and the retargeting is the function of doing that. So obviously, you don't have to limit yourself to just an alternate channel. There could be alternate channel and alternate channel. There could be A/B testing in each channel. Like, we're going to do social. We're going to take this content, but we're going to change it to an A/B. We're going to do this version versus this version. We're going to send it to that audience and see which one seems to react better. In Google Ads, it might be these are the ad variations and these are the filtered variations. Let's see what combinations between them actually work. These people demographically reacted best with this offer type for this information. That's good to know. I'm explaining to you all the ways it can be done historically and now. This is how good agencies do these things. Okay. Well, the game's been upped from that. Going back to my custom audience example early on when I was saying this is a guessing game, we're trying to define the audiences that we're trying to target. That's literally what we've been talking about right now. Using these items to define who we wanted to pursue with our marketing message. Okay. The part about custom audiences that GA4 has allowed us to create is the action items of this, the audiences that went to our website to a booking engine and didn't book. So now we have the idea of who we're marketing to and who we're marketing because of what they did. We have two ends, two bookcase ends. So now we're dealing with I wouldn't say a golden one. We're dealing with an extremely high value, a premium custom audience combination that has not existed for us before, and not in the context that we can do it now. We can take behavioral knowledge, persona knowledge, customer profiling knowledge about people, like military, family, and so forth. We have these categories of stuff. We have the geographies of them. We have the ability to create these filters and have these audiences defined from this side. And now we also have on the other side the ability to identify actions. Now, currently, and I've not heard anybody doing this to the way I'm about to describe it, they do an either or. Mostly the first, because that's the more familiar and the more traditional ways that things have been done. Few have begun to adopt the idea of what action custom audiences can create. But I haven't heard anybody that says, let's make a premium combination of these two. Let's take all of the filtered information of personas that we have and use that as an identifying factor in relationship to the actions we want to create audiences from as well. So take the filtered ideas, identify the actions that we want to create audiences from. And now what we have is I want to target people that went to my website that are family interested, geographically based within drive market, price resistant to a margin of ADR that I'm offering, window of opportunity based on the interest historically they've shared during summertime seasonality, 21 days out kind of mentality stuff. This is data that you have, that go to my website, go to my booking engine, and don't book within the 30-day window that I'm looking to track an audience from. So now the audience I'm developing with that combined, premium custom audience development is identifying the audience tracking based on that action with these parameters. So now anything I use that audience for and the growth from it that Google will generate or Meta will generate from that, lookalike audience and so forth, is based on the same premises. So now whatever messaging I first put out to them is speaking to them right out of the gate. Their first message is related to their interest and their ability to act on that interest, and the fact that they were already looking at it for the trigger of the action that I identified. Then I add the second engagement, which is not the same content of the first one, but it's a change based on whether they interacted or not with my first one and at what level they engaged with. Maybe there's markers like, again, multivariance. Did they click on certain things or not certain things? Did they share it, not share it, comment on it? Did they go to certain pages? That creates a retargeting of an audience where now they went back to my website from this campaign, looked at these certain pages, and those are pages that I identified as being part of a new trigger that says, if they did this thing, that puts them into this category of audience, and I want this second message sent to them. If they didn't do anything with it, I want a retooled version of what I just sent them, and I want to put them over in this category. And maybe instead of putting it on the same platform, maybe the first engagement was Facebook, okay, with the custom audiences, I want to shift them over to paid Google program. I want them to see the same type of messaging elsewhere, or maybe a display program where there's more visualization than there was messaging, because there's variations in ad types as well. It's a complex puzzle of the variances. You get the knobs and the buttons of everything that you can do. So maybe it's an ad variation type. Maybe you want to make it more video than you do image. Maybe you want to make it more context and offer than you do informational. There's variations depending upon your voice, where in the storyline they are, how far of a lead time from them looking to when they're acting, that distance between them seeing and versus what they're looking for. So as to how often I put this in front of them on what channel, but each time they interact, I'm redefining an audience so that I have the ability to be better at my next message for them, which will always and should be different than the first one they got, but similar in context of reason for why, so that they will feel more like they're talking or engaging with an active, interested, sensitive, and listening speaker of marketing, communication. Marketing is communication, so that they feel like they're getting the information that will help them make the conversion trigger. There's the first half of all this, where I said there was 2/3, going through the process of creating all this. The follow-up to this is that's only the beginning, because say this works and we're geniuses and you get the conversions and you're a rock star and your KPI top line revenue goals are flowing in, everything's wonderful. You don't walk away from this. You don't say, okay, great. Thanks for your part, customer, guest, hope to see you again. No, there's the continuance of, as we've talked about, show 408, I think we talked about this, of handing it off to operations, where marketing's brought them to the property. Property's aware of what brought them to the property so that they can fulfill the expectations that marketing has provided for them to experience. Operations engagement with them is validating all of the things that brought them there. And then they get handed back to marketing in post communications. This is where your CRM engagement is at its highest. This is when the residual lifetime seeding of value is at its highest. This is the chance to revalidate the whole process of bringing them to and them experiencing and them aftermathing their relationship with you is identified. And this is your best opportunity to hone the pencil even sharper with these custom audiences to define what you thought they were, which is the creation of targeting the audience, to what you were targeting them by doing, which is the custom audiences of actions of the GA4, okay? And the reality of what they truly identified as the markers of that was successful in their conversion by surveys and questions and engagement, the lifetime value proposition, and using all that data to redefine their entity in your marketing strategy so that in the future, not just getting them back as a lifetime value proposition, but also people just like them that would react and engage very similarly to them because of the custom audience turning into a lookalike audience and familiarity of similarities, okay, that you're building an audience from the knowledge you've gained from the lifetime value. That lifetime value improvement of a proposition of what you gain from learning that from your guests is not calculated in any lifetime value calculation. Not that even most people even remember how to calculate lifetime value anymore. But I can tell you from back when it was being calculated that very few people, nobody actually included what it meant to be learning from your guest so you can find a guest just like them. But that world exists for us now because we have AI to handle large quantities of data, unrelated, unstructured data as it may be, to create correlations that help us better understand and identify the audiences we're looking for. And from the GA4 side, the actions we want to identify to create the audiences with. This combination, this premium custom audience creation, and then enacting that for creating lifetime value engagement afterwards and identifying an expanded audience from that better definition of the audiences that you've already discovered and created into reality, immensely valuable. That can be added to the lifetime value proposition of what that guest going through that sequence of events with you truly represents. So, as you can see, I was excited about talking all this. I was excited about defining this. I was excited about the idea that I'm looking at the way I used to look at custom audiences of creating the personas and the customer profiles that would help me define the marketing strategies. I talked about that. I talked about the progression of content, that it shouldn't be the same old in multiple frequencies and repetitivities and retargeting to ad nausea, that it's all measured and capable based upon the distance between discovery and interest. I talked about the fact that you have the variety of channels that you should begin to use in that process. So it's just not one funnel ramming it through. Even if you are changing content progressively, you should disseminate it based upon opportunities of variations, and also multi-A/B test the messaging to see whether or not your good guesstimate of what you're targeting is correct. But more importantly, the other side of the custom audiences, which is the definition of the actions and creating audiences from that, like, visiting your website, going to your booking engine but not booking, and taking that audience and creating it in comparison, in combination with the first one, creates a premium audience of identification of who they are via persona based, and an identification of the action you're looking to measure that filtering in relationship to for your targeting, and also multiplicities of channels, and also multiplicities of message progression and so forth. It seems like a jigsaw puzzle. It's really a funnel in a tunnel. And to go from where you're here to where you're then. And then the key element, I don't want to get lost in that, is the tail end, where after they've gone through the process of marketing to realization of experience to lifetime value, that lifetime value is amplified now because we can expand the learnings of their experience with us, validating our strategy, identifying the unknowns that we didn't know until they went through it, creating the lifetime value of their returnability, and the amplification of what they represent in similarity to other audiences. There you have the whole thing. Masters of the universe. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed the dialogue over this, the thought processes. I hope it makes you think through on what you're currently doing to be better at this marketing strategy. If you're not doing any of these things, and you're just turning on ad campaigns and you're saturating markets and you're branding yourself and making sure that people look for you and they find you, and channel Google is doing what they're doing, and maybe you're doing performance max because you're lazy and you just want to say, here, Google, take my money and I don't want to worry about anything. Good luck, because there's people like me out there that are going to be doing this, and they will always be better than the automation that is being deferred to right now. As I mentioned, AI is great, but it's not that great in that sense. But using it to identify data that you have better decision processes, implementing functionalities that just take too much time to get done, that is what it's huge for. So GA4, huge game changer for us in the sense of data availability. AI, huge game changer in understanding and interpreting the big data that a GA4 generates for us. But out of all of that is the progression of understanding the usabilities of both of them for the way we do marketing and the way that it benefits our guests. Almost like a mic drop moment. I can't drop this one. I do hope you've enjoyed it. Again, thank you so very much for your time. I hope for those that are watching us on TV, it was worth seeing my big face on a screen for almost an hour. Roku, Google, Amazon, Apple, Samsung. I missed one. Anyway, Twitch, Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, YouTube. We're all over the place. We will simulcast our live show, this one, 11:30 a.m. Sydney, Australian time for our APAC friends, and 11:30 a.m. Wednesday, London, UK time for our EU friends, because this does land in odd times. That being said, we get a lot of people from around the world. I mean, we're broadcasting in 209 countries on the TV station and 39 on the simulcast. We get people from amazing time zones that have live questions for us, or follow-up questions for us. And again, if you ever want to give us a question or respond to what we've said or give us insights or whatever, you're able to do that audibly by going to hdm.news/talkback. There you can either answer my weekly question and or just leave comments and then tell me whether I can quote you, use you, or just refer to it. We do have a follow-up to this, a audio podcast. We've been doing that for 17 years. This show now is in its 10th year. Yay, August. It's in our 10th year. And our podcast, to be fair, on a weekly level is now in its 10th year. It's been 17 years, but it's not always been weekly. For the past 10 years, it has been weekly. But the podcast, audio-wise, is on magic number 39 platforms. Amazon, Alexa, Google Assistant, Apple Siri. Just ask them to play the Hospitality Marketing Podcast, and it will play our latest episode. That one's a little shorter than the live show. It's about 20 minutes, 15, sometimes max 30, where we talk specifically about tools and techniques to use those tools and some news items and a recap of this show. It is symbiotic to the topic of the show. So the podcast today will be a lot about how to create custom audiences, how to define custom audiences, how to discover custom audiences, and also how to configure them and what tools can be used to configure them in platforms like Google Ads and so forth. And we're talking about, if you don't know about this, Google Ads observation profile capabilities, where you can put custom audiences up and see what they do without having to actually use them, which is really cool. But anyways, we'll be talking about that on the podcast today as well. So hopefully you'll join us there as well. You can catch us on anything from iHeartRadio, Stitcher, all of them. So again, I keep saying I'm leaving, but then I keep adding something to it. My name is Lauren Gray. I thank you for the privilege of your time, and I look forward to talking to you all next week.